even if it ain't quite so.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Munson Steed, and welcome to another Health IQ. Health IQ obviously is sponsored by the phenomenal AARP. But what makes this special is you have the most beautiful, intelligent, intellectual, inspiring group of true caretakers, lovers of family, lovers of community, and truly individuals that have been able to heal us with song and obviously with lots of study and experience in emergency rooms and saving and caring for the lives of our community. That is none other than, of course, Dr. Frita, who is our healthcare expert, celebrity doctor, and the one, the only, Tionne T-Boz. How are you?
Blessed, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming to Health IQ. It's all about the Black family, which is the subject matter today. And, we're in COVID. So the things we could do with our families, we cannot do. So what are you not doing with your family, Dr. Frita?
What am I not doing with my family?
Yeah, like are you going to hug all your cousins right now? Are you?
My greater family. I'm not doing anything except for giving them Zoom and FaceTime love. On occasion, when I have come in contact, we will do a virtual hug from 6, 8, 10 feet across the way so fast. We have been very, very serious about this COVID.
Yes,
so we're doing Zoom, FaceTime love.
How about you, T-Boz?
I'm here with my 2 children and my mom, and we all have pre-existing conditions and suppressed immune systems. So I love my brother to death, my niece and all of that. And I'm missing my niece grow up, but Auntie just has to wait. So when I say nobody can come in my house, nobody. We shot a TV show. I was like, I'll set up my own equipment. Nobody can come here. I acquired some new skills.
I think all of us have. I look at my credit cards and be surprised. I was like, wow, I don't have to pay you this month. I have cooked all day. So I love it. Are you cooking, Dr. Frita?
I am. But speaking of new skills, not only have I learned new skills, I learned that my family has skills, i.e., my children can cook now. They can fold clothes, they can sweep. So that is one silver lining to this pandemic. Learning skills and finding out that your kids really can do a lot more than you've been making them do. But yes, I've been
right.
And putting my kids to work.
I love it. I love it. So for you, and we'll start with you, Dr. Frita, why is Black family health so important in terms of knowledge for all of us?
Black family health is so important because for so many years, especially in this country, we've had health disparities. We've had a huge gap. Blacks are more likely to have high blood pressure, more likely to have diabetes, more likely to have strokes, kidney disease, you name it. Even Black infants are twice as likely to die as white infants. And so it's time for us to take some of our power back, to educate ourselves and to understand these things so that we can live our healthiest, our happiest lives.
Well, that's close. I'm going to give me some more in a minute. That is so beautiful. I think it's real important that we talk about all of those things that you shared because it's so meaningful to us to know what our family's health and health history is. How about you, T-Boz? You talked about 4 members and everybody has something to consider.
I've noticed, especially, me having sickle cell and being in the hospital myself, how many people just feel Black people are so uneducated when it comes to our health. I'm my biggest advocate, and I always, tell people when I do, seminars or, Boys and Girls Club, and, I do a lot of, speaking on health, but a doctor will come in the room. I just turned 50 and he's like, well, you have sickle cell and you have a special kind and blah, blah. I'm like, sir, I could school you more than you can school me on what I have. You know what I'm saying? Because I've done my research. I know my body, and I will stand up for everything to stay alive. Because I can't tell you how many death scares I've had in the hospital from people messing up. So I know what drugs are compatible. I know what milligrams I take. I know what I'm allergic to. Like, you just have to really be on top of your game, or you can die easily in the hospital.
That's true. And I like what you said, because a lot of times physicians will walk in and I'm the doctor, you're the patient. Let me tell you what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
If we listen to our patients, then we can work together and really maximize the treatment. But you have to have the respect, because if your patients sense that you don't respect them, they won't respect you. And then we really won't have any Black family health. So I like that you're your own advocate.
But you know, that you said the key word, doctors mostly. That's why I gave you props before we got on here. I told her that I wish doctors thought like her. They don't listen. I'm just trying to get you to listen, because remember years ago, wheat was good. Oh, eat wheat. Now it's like, eat gluten-free. Wheat's not good for you. This isn't good. That's because people over time had experiences, and then we evolved. And every 7 years, our body changes. So you start learning, oh, I'm allergic to this, and this isn't so good. I know 10 years ago it was good, but now we found out it's not, because people had experiences that show that it wasn't good. So things change, times change, people change. Like, so you have to listen. Right. My daughter has lupus, and I was trying to tell the radiologist something. This just happened. And I said, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, she has lupus. Hers is long-term, not like your sickle cell, 3 days or so. If I only got sick 3 days and almost didn't die all them times in the ICU, I'm like, if sickle cell is only 3 days, honey, why? And you know, come on, dude, like, you sound crazy and you sound illiterate and you haven't done your homework.
And you haven't lived this life.
Hello.
This is my. I think there's a real big word, you both used it, advocacy, self-advocacy and research, how important it is to have that relationship. Dr. Frita, how important is it to be able to advocate for yourself and be aware of the history you have, family history of health?
It is so important to advocate for yourself. And so as patients, you must talk to your family. And that seems to be a big problem, especially in the Black community. We mind our own business. What happens in this house stays in this house. Don't tell anybody. I have had so many patients who have come to me and we find out that they have kidney failure, some having to go right on dialysis. I've done biopsies. I find out that the disease is genetic. And one patient in particular, it was only after he got diagnosed with his kidney disease, FSG is what he had, which is very common among Blacks and Hispanics. He found out that his brother had died from the same disease, but his brother's widow told him once he was diagnosed. They never talked about it. And so you must find out your family history. Do you have a prostate cancer history in your family? Do you have breast cancer, diabetes in your family? That way, when you go to the doctor and they walk in with their pads and they're headed towards the door, giving you the body language that your time is up, you can stop them, ask the questions, and demand your time. You show them that you realize that you're important. You realize that your health is a priority. You let the doctor know that, and then they, in turn, can receive it and give you the care that you deserve. But we have to speak up for ourselves. We have to advocate and educate.
So you already have a pre-existing condition, T-Boz. So, and you obviously had experience in and outside of the hospital, truly emergencies. So you're prepared. How do you prepare to advocate? Because when I go with my mom, she seems to have a list, like a laundry list. I'm like, you know, she wants head to toe, and she has some. How do you approach it? Because I know for and I'm not just asking you, because when you say children, you've got to advocate for the whole family.
Right, right.
I have a twofold answer because, okay, I'll start with my story. When I was 7, the doctor should have never said this in front of me, because there's some people who don't have people to talk to. They don't have good families. They don't know anything to ask. They've never had this problem. some weren't born like me. They just got older and got something along the way. So at 7, he told me I would be disabled, I would never have kids, and I would die by the time I'm 30. Now that, if I didn't have a strong mother, could have ruined my life. Because some people put everything into the doctor because they don't know anything else. So whatever he says to them is the gospel. But what I've learned is they practice medicine, and I know my body. So what I've started to do is I take a pen and a paper, because when you're so stressed, no matter what all of us have, AIDS, lupus, hypertension, sickle cell, we all know we have cancer. We all have something foreign in our body that we don't want there. We all want to live and we all want to stay here. So sometimes you get so stressed out, you can't remember. So I take a pad and I write down all my symptoms. When my mom's dealing with cancer right now, I wrote down every question I can think of, because when you're there, you're so overwhelmed with what the doctor's saying that this is my mom. You know what I'm saying? So I want to know everything, and I may forget. So I write it down. And by the time I get to the doctor, you're the only one who can convey to the doctor what's going on with you. Because we all may have something, like me and my cousin had sickle cell, but what worked for him didn't work for me. So we're not all the same. Genetically, we're different. Our backgrounds, our history's different. So what works for one doesn't work for the other. But nothing's wrong with speaking up. Doctors aren't God. Some of them have the God complex, but they're not. They're still learning too. I think just like we have to go back and get our license and our passports renewed, I feel like some of them doctors need to go back to school and learn some new school stuff, because some of them old school doctors, they just don't listen. They think they know it all, and things have changed. You know what I mean? So you have to speak up. It's okay. It's okay to ask questions. If you don't know, they have the internet. They got Google now. They didn't have that when I was little. You know what I mean? And then I finally, at 28 years old, after being misdiagnosed and told that I wasn't going to have a life. But when that doctor did say that, my mom looked at me and she said it with so much conviction and so fierce. She was like, don't listen to what he just said. God has the last say so of your life, but everybody doesn't have a mom like me. So seminars like this, that's why I always say thank you for letting me do this, because people need to hear stories. They need to know, you know, it's okay to ask. It's okay to take up for yourself. It's okay to leave if you don't like his bedside manner. If he doesn't have good bedside manners, that doctor's not for you. Go until you keep finding one. It took me 28 years, but I got me a good one. I call him when my pinky toe hurts.
Yeah, that's a real good point you make up. And I just can't believe what you were told when you were 7. And that's the thing. You talk about doctors going back to get licenses renewed. Well, we actually do have to get our licenses renewed. We have CMEs, continuing medical education. We have to go back and get recertified for boards. But when we learn everything, be it surgery, OBGYN, hematology, you can teach a physician medicine, you can teach a physician statistics, but you cannot teach bedside manner. And so I like how you said you went and you searched until you found a doctor that was a match for you, because it can be a smart doctor, book-wise. Perhaps the doctor who told you whatever she told you at 7 just read something in a book and she felt like she would go and spit out statistics to you. But every patient is not that statistic in a book. And so that's very upsetting that she said that to you. And so I am happy that you have a strong mother. God bless your mother.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yes.
So do they go back and learn? Like, because I know they renew this stuff, but do they go back and learn though? Or is it just that they're not listening? But do they have to go back and learn the new stuff? Or is that a choice?
It's
that's
a
the part I'm
choice.
talking about.
It's a choice. It really is you take it upon yourself to read all the latest journals, the latest research. No one is making you do that.
Well, that's the part that's the part I meant, is they need to go back, just like we have to redo our license and stuff. I'm not saying the license part. I'm saying in the terms of go back and relearn or learn what is new, because I can tell some of these doctors haven't. And I'm like, is it because they don't know, or they just stick to what they think and they're stubborn? You know what I'm saying? So that's what I meant. I didn't probably say it right, but that's the part I was talking about. Because I get so frustrated, because like my daughter almost passed away. She could have lost her life in January. And the last thing you want to do as a mother is sit there and argue.
Right.
But these people are over my child's life at the time. I can't just strip her off of all the tubes and stuff, you know. And it's just really hard, you know, dealing with that. And you have all these emotions and stress at the same time. My mom got cancer at the same. It was a lot. I'm not gonna lie. And that's why I said I got that notebook and I write everything down, because I was so stressed out I couldn't remember my name for a minute. Like, what's your Tionne? No, you know.
You said, thank God you have a strong mother, but it sounds like your children have a strong mother as well.
I try. Thank you.
Blessed tribe over there. Y'all aren't letting anybody in your house, in your bubble, but
no.
a blessed little bubble tribe you have over there.
And you know, T-Boz, we don't try. I mean, we don't even use that word here, rolling out. And I know you didn't mean it, so I'm gonna tease you about it. But you know, you mom 24/7, 365. You know, 1,000%. You know, do or die, ride or die with the baby.
Thank you. I do.
Yes. It ain't a try. You know, that mom tried. She didn't feel like inspired. She got tired and went home. You know.
No, I do. You can get me. You got me on that one.
Yeah,
I do.
You ain't trying. You know, the mother who tried didn't have emotions. She left the baby, let him give it to somebody else. That was what's happening. Mathew Knowles has joined. How are you, my brother?
Good, my brother. We're doing good today. One day at a time.
All right. We got Dr. Frita. We got T-Boz. We got Mathew Knowles. We are talking about the importance of Black family health and knowing your family's history. You want to chime in with us?
Well, you know, knowing my family's history, my history is I am a BRCA2. I hear a little baby in there somewhere, huh? but I have a BRCA2 mutation, and it's genetics. And as a result of that, I have a higher risk for male chest cancer, prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, and melanoma. Myself, as most of you know, of July of last year, I was diagnosed with male chest cancer. And as you know, I don't think it's appropriate to use the word for men, breast cancer. So I am a witness myself of genetics, family history, breast cancer, and prostate cancer in my family.
Knowing that, though, it caused you to do what? Because you were in stage what when you found out?
Well, you know, I was fortunate. I have a little bit more information than most. Most people don't know. 20 years I was in corporate America. I sold zero radiography for breast cancer detection for 10 years. And sold MRI and CT scanners. So I had some knowledge, and that was power for me, as knowledge is power. And so I knew immediately when I had to discharge, I knew immediately that it could be a sign of male chest cancer. And immediately, and I'm emphasizing immediately, went to my physician, requested a mammogram, then got a biopsy, and this is within the same week, and then had surgery for a mastectomy. So I was stage 1A to answer your question. 1A, I'm fortunate that I didn't have to require radiation therapy. I'm very fortunate and blessed that I take a pill a day for the next 5 years. I just literally 3-4 weeks ago had a mammogram and it was negative. I will be getting my MRI of my prostate in the next couple of days or so. So that's where we are right now.
Wonderful.
That's good. Congrats on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh no, Brother Knowles, I put mine off a month based on COVID, but I told I was definitely going in for my PSA. You know, because for me, it's definitely both the physical and the blood. Most brothers don't just do the blood, but I need a real inspection when it comes to that. Given that my father had stage 4 prostate, so.
Well, my grandfather died of prostate cancer, as well as my 3-4 uncles did. So I can relate to prostate cancer, but it's all about early diagnosis. And the earlier the diagnosis, the better the results will end. The later the diagnosis, you get to stage 4, it might not end as well.
Yeah, that's tough. Prevention, family prevention as a team. Dr. Frita, what do you recommend families begin to do in order to prevent comorbidities and maintain family health life balance?
I'm glad you started off with prevention, because that's really what it's all about. The activities we do can prevent some of these comorbidities. So in order for us to prevent comorbidities, we have to move our bodies, right? We have to exercise. We have to eat properly. So that's the comorbidities part. In order for us to have that family life balance, we need to spend time with our families, communicate with our families. So what better way to have the proper balance than to combine them? If you have to do exercises, try to choose exercises that you can do as a family. So going for walks with the family, or in my house, we like to dance. And so we will outright have dance offs in the living room. I win them, let the record reflect. And yes, I do. My 9-year-old son thinks that he wins, but we'll talk about that. But you're able to have fun. You're having that communication. You're spending family time. And at the end, you've also done the exercise to help to prevent the high blood pressure, prevent the heart disease, help ultimately prevent kidney disease, stroke. So you combine them. And healthy living. If you are raised in a family that eats traditional soul food, yes, traditional soul food, it tends to have high salt or sodium, maybe high fat, pork. It's all in what you're exposed to. But if you expose your children to healthy eating and doing things in moderation, you can have a little bit of everything. You can have some fun, but in moderation. But if you choose cooking as a family activity, which I've been doing, especially during this pandemic, then you can show your children how you can cook collard greens with no meat at all, or perhaps with some turkey. Instead of having all of these desserts with high sugar, you can present strawberries and pineapples and blueberries and talk about the antioxidants, make it a part of your family conversation. So there you have it. You're preventing comorbidities by teaching proper eating habits, and you're also spending time with family and also getting some help cooking. And so you have to be creative to find ways to do both: exercise, eat right, and communicate with your family.
T-Boz, you have some secrets over there.
Well, I feel music is good for the soul. So of course, being a singer, but I don't sing my songs. I think I slaughter everybody else's. No, but we dance as well, watch movies together. With my 4-year-old, he's learning how to cook early because I believe men should cook too. So he helps me, prepare. My mom had a birthday not too long ago, and he helped me cook her brunch. Oh. So it's just cool. And my 19-year-old cooks as well, because I just don't want no lazy children. I just can't. Because one day they have to grow up and be parents too. You know what I'm saying? So I try to get it in early, like my mom did. She trained me at 12. It wasn't a question. She's like, you're going to be a wife and a mother. You're going to know how to cook. So that's important in my household, is cooking and, making sure you know how to wash your clothes and all that kind of stuff. So we've been doing all that as a family. My 4-year-old thinks it's a game because I'm like, slam dunk it into the washing machine. I just make it a game. Mm-hmm. But he's helping me at the same time.
I think, Brother Knowles, you have a good experience in terms of exercise, diet. What do you recommend for families?
Well, for families, I agree with T-Boz. As long as you can exercise together and make it fun, I think that's a great experience. For me, it's my wife and I, and we take walks together. We decided to drive to our San Diego home. Downtown is empty. The hotels are closed. So we have a different experience, that we get to walk on the water, have the breeze in our face. And we do that daily. So it's certainly what we've heard. It's about exercise. It's about diet. It's about, I'm on a diet. I eat my last meal. I finish by 9 p.m. I don't eat until the next day at 12 noon. I'm in my 240s in terms of weight with the goal to get in my 230s. I follow health and I follow what the guidelines are. I realize that at 249, I'm still in the definition of obesity. And I don't like that. I want to get to the 230s, especially all of that correlates to the coronavirus and the risk associated with it. So if I can exercise, stay healthy, eat healthy, but it's also a mental part of this whole thing. I talked once before, when this coronavirus first started, I was very frightened. I was frightened because I had a high risk, and I was frightened because of my age. I'm the oldest statesman here at 68 years old, and I was concerned about that. So I called my therapist. I have a Black man that's been my therapist now for over 15, 16 years. I don't talk to him every year. Sometimes it's years before we talk, but I know when I'm in a crisis, and I know to call my team, and I have a team. My therapist is part of that team. We talked weekly for the first month. Now we're at twice a month. I'll talk to him on Monday, and then we'll go to monthly. But I'm about bringing a team together and having a team approach to health and wellness.
Mm-hmm. I think that's important to do it with your family, because once we decide to do something, we all do it together. My brother's been into that intermediate fasting. I'm starting to juice again. And my daughter, with the lupus and the Sjogren's that she was newly diagnosed with, she went 18 years eating a certain way. So it's been hard for her to just dramatically switch her whole lifestyle in really a day. They just was like, you got to cut all this out, or you're going to stay in the hospital, you're going to stay sick. And we just do it as a family. We do it together. And I find it easier that way, because if somebody's over here eating snacks and cooking soul food, that makes it so hard for me when I'm juicing. So we all got to stick together and do it as a family. And for me, that's the easiest.
You know, my biggest issue for our community is more where Dr. Knowles was. Our use of numbers as it relates to our health is ridiculous. We've got to begin to use numbers. I was teasing. Now that I know you walk, I'll be reaching out for you, Dr. Knowles, to talk about it, because we got brothers on a challenge. But, 10,000 steps. It's on your phone. It's a free app. Literally, we've got to really manage that. You really should know how many calories you're burning. You really should set goals as it relates to how many steps. I really believe we have to put in some KPIs, key performance indicators, so that if it is, and I loved it when you said it, Doctor, I want to go from 240 to 230. But that's something you can measure. You can literally say, if I get to 250, I'm not going in the right direction. I think that's the same way as it relates, Dr. Frita, to blood pressure. You have to know if you're 200 over 170, stroke tomorrow. You probably are slurring your words when it shows up on your cuff. So I think the numbers are things we must share so that we have health KPIs. Rarely do I hear our community speak numerically about their health. And that has to change. For your family, a young child needs to know what a good blood pressure is. Clearly, you were talking about body weight when you were talking about 248, and that's a number. And it's 230, but that's a goal. And so for me, Dr. Frita, what other KPIs or numerical family indicators should we all really have a good grasp of in order to know and maintain evaluating our health? Because we must evaluate our health.
Absolutely. And let me tell you, I love listening to Dr. Knowles and to T-Boz, each of them mentioning things they've gone through, things their families have gone through. And Dr. Knowles, you even use the term like this COVID thing. I have a certain age, I have certain risk factors. And you mentioned the word fear. And that's real. COVID-19 can cause fear. But for you, you've made it so it's not a paralyzing fear. Right after you use that word, you immediately shared how you're being proactive, your action plan. And yes, the numbers matter. You have a lot of people who don't want to step on the scale because they don't want to see that number. I have patients like that. They don't check their blood sugars because they don't want to see those numbers. But what I tell them is whether you look at the number or not, the risk factor is still there. And so you may as well love yourself enough to know so you can do something about it. And so some important numbers. You mentioned high blood pressure. Well, the definition of high blood pressure has changed since 2017. If your blood pressure, that systolic number is 130 or higher, or if that diastolic, that bottom number is 90 or higher, you have hypertension, you have high blood pressure. That's a recent change. And so normal blood pressure is 120s, over 80s, or lower. And so these are numbers we need to know because most people will say, oh yeah, my blood pressure's in the 130s, I'm pretty good. No, that's high blood pressure. As far as blood sugar, if you are a diabetic or if you're being checked to find out if you're pre-diabetic, if your fasting blood pressure is, if your fasting blood sugar is consistently over 126, then that is too high and you likely have diabetes. It should be less than 120 or even in the 70s to 110 range. You have to know that number. As a Black family health, as a Black community, a lot of us think that when we don't have symptoms, that certain numbers are okay for us. For example, I have so many patients, they'll walk in feeling great. They feel fine as wine and they'll have blood pressures of 180 over 100. And they'll tell me, oh yeah, my pressure runs like that. That's normal for me. Well, what it is that the body is such a miraculous unit that it will compensate. And so you can have stroke causing, heart attack causing high blood pressure, but your body will protect you and you'll feel no symptoms. And so in understanding those numbers, we have to understand what is normal is normal. And just because we may have certain fears, we can't let them be paralyzing. We have to know what's normal, what's right. And we can only do that by being our own advocates, talking to our doctors, and by educating ourselves.
If I'd like to add to that, there's also companies out there now that have screening, especially for BRCA screening, genetic testing, for cardiovascular testing, as well as cancer testing. I wish that I knew about that years ago because I certainly would have been ahead of the curve. There's a company called Invitae, so we can give information that will send a kit to you and you can send it back and talk to doctors and get ahead of it. Every day, I have a routine since the coronavirus. I invested $45. I got one of the temperature guns. I take my temperature every morning. I invested $50 so I can take my oxygen meter a level every day. I know if it's drops below 75, then I'm going to call my doctor. Fortunately, it hasn't. It stays around 78. So I'm good. But those are simple $100 investment. We're talking about our life. $100 investment. We'll spend that on a pair of shoes, glass of wine, bottle of wine. We'll spend that in a heartbeat. But we want less in going to the doctor or getting information, pre-screening type of information. Makes no sense to me because without my health, it starts. It's not about my family being number one because I'll become a liability to my family if I'm unhealthy. So the first and foremost thing in my life is my health, first and foremost.
And you really hit it when you said value. We don't invest in what we don't value. And so it's really about us, especially as a Black community, understanding the value and the importance of our health and again, self-advocating. There have been studies that talk about implicit bias or unconscious bias, specifically in the medical field. And what does that mean? That means a lot of times doctors will treat minorities, Blacks in particular, a certain way, but they don't even know that they're doing it. For example, one study showed that Blacks are less likely to receive as much information on preventive care. They will receive 1/3 less than white people, for example. And so what does that mean? We really have to be active. We have to talk about it, and we have to really know what preventive medicines, what preventive tests have to be done. We have to really support each other and talk about it. Just like you shared your $45 and $50 investment. I hope that didn't break the bank for you. But if you don't share it, then people might not know that they have access to it. They might think that you only have to be a physician to get access. And so the conversation that we're having right now is so important. And so I really hope that the communities are listening.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier, how, the doctors don't listen. But I also think when the doctor sees that you're invested into your life and your health, I think some of them respect you a little more because they can say, oh, this girl is really serious about what she's doing. And just like Mr. Knowles said, I have my oxygen reader. I take my daughter's blood pressure every day. She came home on 18 medications. That's a lot to remember, the dosages. And, so that's why I have a book. It's like $18 on Amazon to write down everything, all the symptoms, everything you gave your daughter, her blood pressure and all that. Because when you, like I said, you're stressed out sometimes when you're dealing with so much. Like my mom having cancer and my daughter being in the hospital at the same time was a lot for me. So my mind, I was so stressed out, I couldn't remember things, but I would defer back to my book. And that's why I wrote everything down that was happening so that I can convey that to the doctor. And that is so important when I talk about, self-advocacy.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. And T-Boz, and you've mentioned how your daughter is living with lupus. Lupus is something that really affects the communities greatly, especially Blacks, Hispanics. And so I do just want to say a quick word on what lupus is. It's one of those autoimmune diseases. So just like an autobiography is a book that you write about yourself, an autoimmune disease is a disease that when you have your antibodies, instead of them just attacking the viruses, the bacteria, those antibodies attack you yourself. And so with lupus, for those who are listening who don't know, it's not something that will just attack one particular organ. It can attack any and all organs, the joints, the skin, the heart, the kidneys. And T-Boz, I know you know more than anyone just how frustrating that is. And so I want people to really think, if you are someone who's listening and you have a rash that you can't explain, especially like a butterfly rash right around your nose area. If you have these joint pains and good and well, you didn't do anything to hurt your knee, no reason to have elbow pain, finger pain. If you are having certainly blood in your urine, you can get kidney disease from lupus. If you're having shortness of breath and you're a person who's, pretty young and shaky, you just don't understand why. And if you keep having random symptoms and doctors may be like, oh, you're just stressed out, or, oh, they think you're a little bit of a hypochondriac. Remember what T-Boz is sharing, lupus, and ask your physician to screen you for it. So I'm really happy that you're sharing, because a lot of people don't know it. Lupus is not quite as common as you may think if it hasn't, happened in your family. So I'm really glad that you're sharing and bringing awareness to that today.
Thank you. My daughter has a big whammy because she has it from both sides of the family. So she has a bad genetic case of it, and she has Sjogren's on top of that, which is a cousin to lupus. So she was really sick, but I mean, her symptoms were so crazy. Even the swelling of the eyes, the swelling of her finger, the swelling of her big toe, her lips would be like this big, like crazy, just her top lip. And I'm like, okay, did she eat something? It started like that. So that's why you really got to pay attention. And I went back and started thinking about when my daughter was 2. And I kept saying she would stop walking at a week at a time. And I kept saying to the doctors, who made me feel so stupid, because I was like, her antibodies in her blood reads just like my mom. My mom has lupus. She can't have lupus at 2, but it was showing signs. It was showing signs at 2. You get what I'm saying? But I kind of backed off of it because they made me feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't have a Ph.D. I didn't go to school. But I wish I had the mind frame then that I do now. You know what I'm saying? Because I would have started way back then on the holistic remedies, because I feel like God made something for everybody natural on this earth. We just have to find the cocktail and the remedy that works for our disease. And my aunt, at the age of 80, stage 4 cancer, did all holistic and no signs of cancer. That doesn't work for everybody, but it worked for her. So, you know, I really do believe in the holistic thing. And the thing about it, I don't ever tell people to stop taking their prescribed medicine from the doctor, because it's so natural. You could take it with that. And sometimes you get so healthy. My daughter started having a wing down off the medicine. She's only on 2 from 18. So those natural things have been working for my daughter. The vitamins give her energy, you know, the CBD oil helps as well. And, you know, it helps with our immune system as well. Mr. Knowles talked about that. I was terrified when COVID came out, you know, because I'm doing concerts, fans are hugging me. And I started going, oh my God, how many people touched me? You know, because if a cootie looked at me, child, if a cootie was a man, I'd be married daily, because I catch every cootie out there. I'm telling you, cooties look at me, they love me, you know? And now that we all have suppressed immune systems in the house, I just like I stay on top of everything. I'm so crazy. I went to my daughter's rheumatologist. I said, I heard Plaquenil helps, you know, prevent COVID. And he said, yeah. I was like, can I take it? Shh. So I take my daughter's, be quiet. Sorry. I take my daughter's lupus medication. He said I could, because I'm so scared of catching anything. Stop talking. Don't do that. Don't talk. Chance, go away. Mommy can't do that. Mommy's working. Are you almost? Yes, but go. Sorry.
That's real life. That's Black family. That's real life.
That's a pandemic with no babysitter. You can't get rid of nobody.
But you said you're not letting anyone in the house. Let me say, I love what you just mentioned, T-Boz. You talked about the holistic medicines, and you've probably found that a lot of traditional Western medicine physicians will, you know, shy away from holistic medicines or have a fear. And a lot of us are not taught the holistic medicines or the holistic remedies, and we have to teach ourselves. So I, for example, have a YouTube channel. It's Dr.Frita, and I definitely practice medicine, and I'm a hypertension specialist, so I give drugs for sure. But I have one video on how to lower blood pressure naturally. And I have another one on how to boost your immune system naturally. But what you just said is key. You consult your physician, and you can still take your medicine. I have some people who are just like, okay, I watched your video. I want to get rid of my medicines and just do, you know, all of the natural remedies. No, you do both. You consult your physician, and yes, you can wean off of medicines. I love hearing how your daughter came off of 18 medicines and now she's down to 2. There is a way to combine the world where you do natural remedies and you still take advantage of the technology and the Western medicine that we have. It doesn't have to be an either or, one or the other. You can educate yourself on both to maximize your health. And you said that beautifully.
Oh, thank you.
You know, it's Minority Mental Health Month. And Dr. Knowles, you mentioned talking to your psychologist. Why take care of your mental? Why is mental health important for our community, for our families? Why should we all be addressing and understanding mental health better today?
Well, I think all of us have issues that needs to be addressed mentally. I think it goes back to all of our childhood. For me, I was in therapy for 10 years based on the racial trauma growing up in Gaston, Alabama, and I never went to a Black school. I desegregated elementary school, junior high school, Gaston High School, University of Tennessee. So for me, I couldn't understand. I had this compulsive personality and behavior. And it really took its toll. It took a toll on my marriage, took a toll on my family. And I had to get a grasp and a grip on it. And I did. I'm fortunate that I did and grateful for that. But we all have things, and it's the holistic approach to me. And there's an elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. I'm the guy that loves to make people uncomfortable. So faith and science, and I'm speaking to the older generation, I personally believe, my perspective is, I have faith, but I also understand the importance of science. And I think through the coronavirus, we've seen many a minister and many of a churchgoer that's not with us today because they believe in just faith. And I'm going to say the thing that nobody wants to say. They both go together. You can't have one without the other. So our church has to change as well as we start talking about health and wellness. We got to bring it out there, make people uncomfortable. It's got this philosophy.
I agree with that.
On that.
No, but I agree with that. I don't mind making people uncomfortable, especially when it has to do with my life. And I just feel also in the Black community, mental health is shied away from. I don't want people thinking I'm crazy. I don't want them to pity me. This is a whole bunch of different emotions that go with that. But it is so important to get help. Like my cousin is dead now because of his mental illness. He was shot 18 times by the cops with AR-15s, like overkill. And you know, it's so hard because my cousin was trying to get him help and he was just approved. She had to go to mental health court. I didn't even know about that to even provide him help, because my other cousin who has mental illness, they put him in and he's able to leave. But my cousin, on the other hand, before he died, they were actually going to agree to put him in a place that he would stay in. And it was a good thing. But his life got cut short, unfortunately, due to, you know, his illness. But I just don't understand to this day. I mean, we keep talking about, I have a friend who has, you know, a nonprofit about mental illness, you know, because suicide ran in her family. Her dad committed suicide at 3. And she's suicidal. So depression, it like runs in the family. It seems to be something that runs in their family. And, you know, I was so concerned for her during this pandemic, because the worst thing that can happen is, you know, she lost her sister who was like a mother figure, and to be by yourself, because they always tell you during loss to watch, you know, funny movies or stay occupied, you know, your mind. But when you're sitting at home by yourself over and over, I was terrified that she was going to try to take her life again or think about it. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that when she was feeling bad 2 days ago, she called me. She actually called me and we had the conversation. And that just made me feel good that, you know, she really listened to me as a friend. Like, you could really call me 3, 4 in the morning. We'll just talk about it. And she chose to do that instead of thinking about ways that she could have killed herself. So, you know.
That's a beautiful story. And
I think we want to open it up to questions on Facebook, Dr. Frita, and I'm going to let you continue. But anybody in the chat, you do have a couple of questions here from people who want to know exactly what sickle cell anemia is, and for Dr. Knowles, why Black men don't go to the doctor. So Dr. Frita or T-Boz, whoever chooses on sickle cell, and then Dr. Knowles, why Black men don't go to the doctor.
Well, I'll open up the scientific side of the sickle cell. And so for all of us, we have red blood cells, and your red blood cells are shaped like donuts. They're nice, they're bendy, and they're like your little cars that carry your oxygen to all of your tissues. Well, in sickle cell, your red blood cells aren't nice little bendy donuts. If your body has any type of a stress or low oxygen, which we all experience at some time, if you have sickle cell disease, then your donut red blood cells turn, and they're literally shaped like sickles or like crescent moons. So what's the problem with that? 1, they can't carry oxygen to the tissues properly. And 2, they can't fit through all of the blood vessels. And so you get somewhat of a traffic jam when you're in a sickle cell crisis. Imagine your red blood cells getting stuck at the tiniest part of your blood vessels. Well, now you have pain at every part. You can get pain all over your body, in your hands, your feet, your knees, and you can have crises. You can have lung crises. You can even infarct or kill off certain parts of your body. You can have, just like you can get a heart attack, you can get a kidney attack where parts of your kidney cells die. You can get a spleen, your organ, the spleen, can be attacked and be gone. And then you're at risk for all types of infection. And so that's just the overview of sickle cell. It is genetic, it is inherited. And so it's important that you know, again, that family history. If you have sickle cell disease in your family, even if you don't have the disease, you may be a carrier. or have trait. What does that mean? If you marry or have a child with someone else who has a sickle cell trait, well, you have a great chance of having a baby with sickle cell disease, a 25% chance of a baby with sickle cell disease, and a 50% chance of having trait. So that's back to the education and the advocacy. And T-Boz, who has actually lived it and lives it every day, can tell you much more about what it's like to be the one with sickle cell disease.
You did a great job. I mean, that's how usually I explain it. And, you know, a lot of people, when you get your blood taken, they wonder why they look at your hemoglobin. That's the substance that carries the oxygen to your organs. But it is excruciating pain. But one thing I do want to speak to for those who do have sickle cell or don't know what type they have, it's so important to understand the type you have, because I'm a special case. Characteristically, I don't look like I have sickle cell. So they automatically think I'm drug seeking, even though my blood reads that I'm just as sick as everyone else. But in my family, I have SC, which is sickle cell SC, mixed with beta thalassemia. So one of my parents had a thalassemia. So I have sickle thal, which a lot of doctors out in California don't know about. They have a test that only tests you for sickle cell anemia. There's SS and there's SC, and there's sickle thal, you know. So I had my husband check for everything under the sun before I chose to have my daughter Chase, you know, the daughter that the doctor told me I would never have. You know what I'm saying? So like Mr. Knowles said, faith is something I have, and God is, you know, seen me through a lot, but I have lost my spleen. It's infarct, but God blessed me. I didn't even know you can grow a spleen back. It may be the size of a nickel and a quarter, but I grew 2 accessory spleens. And what your spleen does is helps you fight off diseases. Now, I can't fight off big COVID diseases, but I can fight off your common cold, the flu. I don't heal as fast as people because my blood is not that strong. I don't have a working spleen, but my 2 little baby ones, you know, they try to keep me, but now I'm working to keep those accessory spleens, because I've also had an infarction in my lungs. So now I have asthma, meaning oxygen didn't get to my lungs while I'm touring. And, out there on the road, getting sick, not taking care of myself. That was pre-T-Boz. Now, you know, taking care of herself, T-Boz knows better, because I have an oxygen concentrator. I do before and after the show. I check my oxygen, my blood pressure. I make sure everything's together. But before then, I didn't know about that. And I lost some tissue to my lungs because the oxygen didn't get to my lungs. And therefore, I have breathing problems now. So you just, you know, like I always tell you, stay on top of your health, be your own advocate, and know about your body. Write it down, because you'll be surprised how often you forget about certain symptoms or something you was feeling. I know when my spleen hurts now, so I can tell the doctor, I know it's my spleen. I went to the hospital. It was like, I said sickle cell. He was like, oh, because most people don't come in saying my organ hurts, you know. Right. How do you know that? Yeah. And, you know, it's hard to breathe. I have sharp pains. I can't even like you breathe every breath I take hurts. I've had the worst crisis in my jaws. You can even get a crisis in your face, your collarbones, the weirdest places. So sickle cell is no joke, and it's an autoimmune disease as well. And honestly, I learned when my daughter was in the hospital how close lupus and sickle cell kind of sound alike and we ache alike. So that's how I knew how to better take care of my daughter, even before I knew she had lupus, because I kept saying, it sounds like my sickle cell, you know? So I treated her like I would, and it really helped her.
And T-Boz, you mentioned excruciating pain. I think people don't really understand just how much pain it is to be in sickle cell. I can't imagine it. I only know what my patients have told me. And I mentioned that because we were talking about it. A lot of times patients with sickle cell disease will go into an emergency room, and because they've lived with the pain for so long, they know which pain medicines work for them. They know which pain medicines don't. But oftentimes physicians will look at them like, oh, you're drug seeking. And that's a part of the health disparity. There have been studies of the unconscious bias in the medical field, which show that if you are Black, then your pain is less likely to be taken seriously, both acute and chronic pain. So I want everyone listening, especially any healthcare providers, remember, try to have that empathy. Put yourself in a sickle cell patient's shoes. Put yourself in T-Boz's shoes. If they are living with pain that makes your jaws hurt, collarbones hurt, most of us don't live with that pain. Instead of labeling us as drug seekers, have that empathy, and give the proper pain medicine while that crisis is going on.
And I can explain it like this so they can better understand. I don't know if anybody's ever had, a cut with a knife, or, some people may even been stabbed. It feels like somebody took a butcher knife and stabbed me wherever I'm aching, over and over and over, as hard as you can imagine, over again. Then you get on top of the consistent throbbing, you get these sharp jabs that make you like you can't even, I've been so sick, I've been delirious to where I didn't know where I was. Like, I was so out of my mind. I wasn't even on medicine, but I was at home and I had gotten so sick before I got to the ER. I didn't know who was talking to me. I didn't know where I was. I was disoriented. Like, that's a lot of pain to get you to not know where you are, and I try to explain it the best way you can. And see, my mom trained me to be calm. So when I go to the hospital, I don't cry, I don't kick. I'm talking to you like I talk now. I go, look, Dilaudid almost stopped my heart. Demerol works. They took that off the market. And I'm a bad person to have sickle cell because drugs don't agree with me. I'm allergic to Percocet, Vicodin, all the drugs. I'm allergic morphine. I have to take Benadryl with everything. I get hives, I itch. It's crazy. Like, and I can't go home on PO after I wing down off the IV medicine because I don't do good. And then the doctor gave me Nubain. They take it off the market. And now they try have me doing some kind of spray up your nose called Stadol, and it runs down your throat and tastes terrible. So I really, at this time, when I have a crisis, don't have a medication to take. And that's awful because I sit in pain a lot. And I take hot baths. I try to take the natural stuff. But when the pain gets too bad, what a lot of people don't understand, it's hard to chase the pain. You got to catch it. Right. Chasing pain, you're always going to ache. But if you catch it in time, you can better manage it. And that's what they don't do in the hospital. I've had somebody out here tell me I don't have sickle cell. I've had somebody say, offer me Tylenol. That's a joke.
Well, Dr. Knowles, you get the last question. Why don't Black men go to the hospital?
Well, first of all, Monson, thank you for inviting me. I know we're about to wrap this up, and thank you, T-Boz, for sharing, and Dr. Fisher. And the most I took away from you, T-Boz, is your education, that you took the time to get knowledgeable about your disease and your health. But I also took away you understand patient rights, and a lot of us don't understand that. We have rights as patients. The whole doctor is the know-it-all. The doctor is the God. That day has left. That ship has sailed. But to answer your question, we've been conditioned as men to be tough. We work really hard to be the very best, give for our family. But the short version is ego. I want to leave you with a definition that, as a college professor, shout out to Prairie View A&M where I'll be. I'm going to give you a definition you've never heard. Ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. That's why we don't go to the doctor, because of our ego.
So it's our ego. So I want to thank you all for participating. I think family health is so important to us all. I really appreciate the specifics that we all shared about our family histories, how to prevent. I hope the community focuses. Positive thoughts. Everybody gets 30 seconds. Dr. Frita.
Positive thoughts. That is actually one of the best healthy habits. There are 10 healthy habits for a better life and a better you that I actually live by every day. And for any listeners, they can actually download a PDF I have on this from my YouTube channel, Dr. Frita. And my number one healthy habit, when you wake up in the morning, you have positive self-affirmations. You tell yourself everything that's good about you. You tell yourself everything that went well the day before. And you live it and you believe it. You also do self-care and several other things. But at the end of the day, you have positive self-reflections. The mind, body, and soul have to be positive in order for us to have health. And so my positive thoughts are for everyone to understand the importance of you. Prioritize yourself, prioritize your health.
I think T-Boz, you agree with that?
Yes, and my positive is I believe in words. Words are powerful. Even if you don't have the faith or the understanding to believe in what you want, I believe in manifesting the things that I want. If I want to be better, you know, T-Boz, you're going to feel better. Tionne, feel better, feel better. Say the things that you want, even if you don't see it at the time, even if you don't have the faith to believe it, even if you just can't imagine it, say it. If that's what you want, say it. Because if you say, I'm sick and I'm tired, you're going to be sick and tired. But if you want to be healthy, you say, you know what, I want to be healthy. I'm going to get better. I am going to heal. Then you most likely will get better if you do the right things.
Dr. Knowles?
Pray not for a life free from trouble. Pray for triumph over trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You and I call adversity. God, the universe, calls opportunity. What is your opportunity today?
Thank you all for coming to Health IQ. I thank you again, Dr. Knowles, T-Boz, Dr. Frita. We love you here at Rolling Out Health IQ. Families, definitely prioritize your health. Take this moment during this COVID-19 and this pandemic to realign, reassess, and reevaluate your health as a family. I'm Munson Steed, and we are out of here on Health IQ, sponsored by AARP. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank